My daughter's new husband brought a crooked lawyer to my kitchen table to steal my fortune. 3 days after the wedding, but he had no idea I already knew his darkest secret. Sign the line, Arthur. It is just a standard asset management release. It ensures Chloe is looked after if your health takes a sudden turn, and it gives me the legal right to protect the family assets. You do want your daughter taken care of, don't you? Julian smiled as he pushed the document across my worn wooden kitchen table. His tailored suit looked completely out of place in my modest house, and the gold-plated pen in his hand practically flashed under the cheap fluorescent light. Behind him, the silent legal advisor he had brought along without an invite shifted nervously, clutching a leather briefcase like it held the crown jewels. I looked down at the paperwork, then looked up directly into my new son-in-law's eyes. If you finish signing that line, Julian, you are not getting a single cent of my money. You are getting 15 years in a maximum security penitentiary. Do you want to take that gamble? The slick, practiced smile died on his face instantly. The room went completely dead silent, save for the low hum of my old refrigerator. What are you talking about? Julian asked, trying to force a laugh. But his voice had completely lost that smooth corporate charm. He sounded thin, brittle. I'm talking about the $14 million my older brother left me when he passed away last October, I said, leaning back and crossing my arms. And I am talking about the fact that you knew about every single dollar of that fortune before you even asked my daughter to marry you. Julian's face turned an ugly, pale shade of gray. The lawyer behind him took a step back, his eyes darting toward the front door like he was calculating the fastest way to escape. 3 days ago, this arrogant bastard was standing at an altar, looking my 27-year-old daughter Chloe in the eyes, and promising to love her in sickness and in health. I stood there in my only good suit, playing the part of the proud, quiet father who spent his life working as a heavy machinery mechanic. Julian thought I was a broke old man, living on a meager pension. He thought I was an easy target, a clueless senior citizen he could bully into signing away his life savings under the guise of family protection. He had no idea who he was actually dealing with. My name is Arthur Vance. I am 58 years old, and I spent 3 decades diagnosing mechanical failures in industrial engines. If there is one thing I know how to do, it is finding the hidden flaw that destroys a machine from the inside out. And Julian? He was a broken machine from the moment he walked into my daughter's life. Let me lay this out clearly, so you understand exactly how we got to this kitchen table. My older brother, Marcus, was a brilliant, stubborn man who built a commercial shipping logistics company from scratch in Chicago. We had a falling out in our 20s over things that seem incredibly stupid now, mostly pride and stubbornness. We went years without speaking. I raised Chloe on a modest mechanic's salary, teaching her the value of hard work, while Marcus built an empire. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning in October, Marcus had a massive stroke at his desk. He was gone before the ambulance even arrived. 2 weeks later, his attorney called me in for a private meeting. Marcus had never married, and he had no children. He left everything to me. After the taxes and legal fees were completely settled, the final number sitting quietly in a private treasury account was exactly $14 million. I sat in that lawyer's office for 2 hours, completely numb. I did not feel rich. I just felt a deep, heavy grief for a brother I had wasted decades avoiding. When I drove home, I made a firm decision. I was not going to tell a single soul about the money. Not my buddies at the garage, not my neighbors, and definitely not Chloe. She was already deeply involved with Julian, and something about that man had rubbed me the wrong way since the day they met. Julian was 31, worked in what he vaguely called high-end luxury real estate consulting, and never seemed to actually do any real work. He always wore clothes that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, drove a leased sports car, and dropped names of influential people like he was reading from a phone book. He was always overly polite to me, complimenting my old truck and asking patronizing questions about my retirement plans. It was the kind of fake, oiled charm that works wonders on people who want to be impressed. But to a man who spent his life looking for cracks in steel, it felt incredibly dangerous. So, I kept my mouth shut. I wanted to see who Julian really was when the cameras were off. The pressure started building almost immediately. My brother's estate went through the official probate court process in early December. In the state of Illinois, probate records are entirely public. Anyone with a computer and a few minutes of spare time can search the county database to see exactly what an estate is worth and who inherited the assets. I did not think about that at the time, but Julian certainly did. 6 days after the probate filing became public record, Julian took Chloe out to an incredibly expensive restaurant downtown, dropped to one knee, and slipped a 2-carat diamond ring onto her finger. Chloe was ecstatic. She called me crying tears of pure joy, telling me she had found her soulmate. But I am a mechanic. I do not believe in sudden coincidences that perfectly align with a multi-million-dollar court filing. I called an old friend of mine named Silas Thorne. Silas and I went to high school together, before he went into law enforcement, and eventually opened his own private security and background assessment firm. I asked him to dig into Julian Cross. I told him I needed to know what this man was doing when he was not busy charming my daughter. It took Silas exactly 5 days to bring me a manila folder that completely shattered any hope I had that Julian was just an ambitious young man. Julian was not a successful real estate consultant. He was a professional predator wrapped in a tailored suit. 4 years prior, he had been engaged to a young woman named Meredith, whose family owned a major chain of regional auto dealerships. The engagement lasted less than a year, ending abruptly the exact week Meredith's father filed for corporate restructuring and bankruptcy protection. The moment the family money vanished, Julian packed his bags and disappeared without a trace. Silas also uncovered a massive trail of financial wreckage. Julian had a serious, destructive gambling habit, frequently taking trips to Atlantic City and Las Vegas, leaving behind a mountain of high-interest debt that he was desperately trying to outrun. He had lines of credit maxed out at 3 different banks, and a private lending firm was already preparing to file a lawsuit against him for unpaid balances totaling over $200,000. He was drowning, and he desperately needed a lifeline. My brother's $14 million inheritance was that lifeline. I sat in my garage for hours reading that report, feeling a cold rage building in my chest. This bastard did not love my daughter. He saw her as a gateway to my bank account. He had tracked the probate filing, realized that a quiet, retired mechanic was suddenly a multi-millionaire, and moved in for the kill. I wanted to rip him apart right then and there, but Silas stopped me. He told me, "Arthur, if you go to Chloe with nothing but a private investigator's report right before her wedding, she is going to think you are a bitter, controlling father trying to ruin her happiness. Julian will twist it, play the victim, and alienate her from you completely. You need to let him play his hand. You need to wait until he tries to make his move on the money. Because men like him cannot help themselves. They get greedy, and they get sloppy. So, I played the long game. I swallowed my anger and watched the wedding preparations unfold. Julian pushed for a massively expensive wedding at a luxury estate overlooking Lake Michigan. He kept making subtle comments during family dinners about how hard it was to secure the venue, dropping hints that a supportive father would want the absolute best for his only daughter. Chloe was stressed out, trying to figure out how they could afford the catering and the flowers on her modest schoolteacher salary. Every time she looked at me with those stressed, anxious eyes, my heart broke. I had $14 million sitting in a bank, and my daughter was losing sleep over the cost of table linens. But I stayed strong. I quietly contacted the wedding coordinator directly. I paid for the venue, the catering, the flowers, and the entertainment in full via direct bank wire transfers, telling Chloe that I had used my retirement savings and a modest life insurance payout from her uncle Marcus. Julian's reaction to those payments was incredibly telling. He did not look relieved. He looked hungry. He started asking Chloe intense, pointed questions about how her old man managed to clear $50,000 in cash transfers so quickly. He phrased it like he was just impressed by my financial responsibility, but his eyes were sharp. He realized that the rumors from the probate files were completely true. The mechanic was loaded. The wedding itself was beautiful, but for me, it was an exercise in absolute self-control. Watching Julian toast to a lifetime of partnership and shared futures made me want to throw him through a wall. His mother, a sharp-faced woman who looked like she judged everyone by the brand of their shoes, came up to me at the reception and said, "It must be such a comfort to know your family's sudden financial windfall is going to be managed by a true professional like my son." I just smiled, took a sip of my water, and said, "Your son is going to get exactly what he deserves, ma'am." She thought I was being sentimental. That brings us back to this exact moment. Tuesday afternoon, 3 days after the wedding. Chloe was at work, and Julian showed up at my house unannounced, flanked by this nervous-looking legal advisor named Miller. He brought a fancy folder full of documents, claiming it was an estate planning package to help me minimize my tax burden and secure Chloe's future inheritance. He thought he was a genius. He thought he was going to walk out of here with my signature on a durable power of attorney and an authorized wealth management transfer form that would give him total access to my brother's accounts. But I had been waiting for this exact knock on the door. "You are very quiet, Julian," I said, tapping my fingers on the kitchen table. "Why aren't you telling your lawyer here to explain the contract to me again? You were talking so fast when you walked through the door." Julian swallowed hard, his collar suddenly looking very tight around his neck. "Arthur, I think there has been a massive misunderstanding. This is just standard financial planning. If you are not comfortable with the terms, we can easily change them. We are family now. There is no need for threats." "Family?" I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous growl. "You don't know the first thing about family. You ran a public records search on my brother's estate on December 10th. You proposed to my daughter on December 16th. Do you want to tell me that was a coincidence? Do you want to tell me about Meredith too?" Julian's eyes went wide. The mention of his ex-fiancée completely stripped away the last remnants of his confidence. His hands began to shake slightly. Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter who told me," I said, sliding a copy of Silas's comprehensive financial report across the table, right on top of his fancy legal documents. What matters is what is inside that file. Your gambling debts in Atlantic City, your maxed out credit lines, the pending lawsuit from your creditors that hits the court docket next week. You are drowning in debt, Julian, and you married my daughter because you thought my brother's $14 million was going to save your miserable skin. The lawyer, Miller, looked down at the file, then looked up at Julian with an expression of pure panic. Julian, you told me this was a routine family asset consolidation. You did not mention any of this. Shut up, Miller, Julian snapped, his face twisting into an expression of raw, ugly malice. The mask was completely off now. He glared at me across the table, his teeth clenched. You think you are so smart, old man? You think you can just ruin my life based on some rumors and garbage reports? I am Chloe's husband now. We are legally married. If you try to come between us, if you tell her a single word of this, I will make her life a living hell. I will take her for everything she has in a divorce, and I will ensure she never speaks to you again. You think she will believe a bitter, paranoid old mechanic over the man she loves? I did not flinch. I did not get angry. I just looked at him with the same calm, steady focus I used when checking an engine block for microfractures. I don't think she will believe you, Julian, I said quietly. In fact, I know she won't. Why are you so confident? Julian sneered, leaning in close. You have a secret fortune you hid from her for months. When I tell her you've been spying on us and keeping millions of dollars away from her while she struggled, she is going to loathe you. Because she is standing right behind you, I said. Julian froze. Every ounce of color drained from his skin. Slowly, painfully, he turned his head around to look toward the narrow hallway that led to my living room. Chloe stepped out from the shadows of the corridor. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes wide with a mixture of absolute devastation and blistering fury. She had a spare key to my house and had come over during her lunch break to drop off some leftovers from the wedding. I had texted her 20 minutes before Julian arrived, telling her to come inside quietly through the back garage door because I had something crucial to show her. She had been standing in that hallway, completely silent, listening to every single word that came out of her husband's mouth. She heard the timeline of the proposal. She heard about the gambling debts, and she heard him threaten to make her life a living hell and ruin her financially. Chloe, Julian stammered, frantically pushing his chair back and standing up, his hands outstretched like he could somehow catch the lies falling out of his mouth. Honey, please, listen to me. Your father is manipulating this. He set me up. He is twisted because of all that money. I was just angry because he was accusing me of horrible things. You know me. You know how much I love you. Don't you dare touch me, Chloe whispered. Her voice was trembling, but it possessed a cold, hard edge that I had never heard from her before. In that moment, she looked exactly like my brother Marcus when he was ready to go to war. Don't you dare say my name. Chloe, sweetheart, please. The financial planning was for us, for our future kids, Julian cried out, his voice cracking with a desperate, pathetic panic. You lied to me from the very beginning, she said, her voice growing louder, filling my small kitchen with a powerful, righteous anger. You looked up my uncle's death in the court records before you proposed to me. You didn't want me, Julian. You wanted a payout. You stood in front of God and our entire family 3 days ago and lied through your teeth. And then you come into my father's house and threaten to ruin my life if he doesn't hand over his inheritance? Miller, the lawyer, did not wait around for the rest of the conversation. He snatched his briefcase off the floor, left the unsigned documents on the table, and practically bolted out my front door, slamming it behind him. Julian looked around the kitchen like a trapped animal. He realized his entire scheme had completely imploded in the span of 10 minutes. The wealth, the security, the easy life he had tried to steal were gone forever, replaced by the grim reality of his mountain of debt and the absolute disgust of the woman he had tried to exploit. Get out of my father's house, Chloe said, stepping forward and pointing directly at the door. Get your things out of our apartment by tonight. If I see your face anywhere near me, near my school, or near my dad ever again, I will take this financial report and the recording my dad's friend made and go straight to the police. Julian's desperate expression hardened into something cold and pathetic. You are making a massive mistake, Chloe, he spat, trying to salvage some shred of dominance. You're going to regret this. He didn't finish the sentence. I stood up from my chair, towering over him. I am a 58-year-old mechanic, but I still spend my mornings lifting heavy engine blocks. I took one step toward him, and Julian immediately backed up, hitting his hip against the counter. My daughter told you to leave, I said, my voice completely steady and entirely unyielding. If you are still standing in this kitchen in 3 seconds, I am going to throw you through that front door myself. Julian looked at me, looked at Chloe's furious, unblinking glare, and realized he had 0 cards left to play. He grabbed his expensive coat off the back of the chair, mumbled a curse under his breath, and practically ran out of the house. A few seconds later, the loud, aggressive roar of his leased sports car echoed down my quiet street as he sped away. The moment the sound of his car faded into the distance, the tension in the kitchen broke. Chloe sank into one of the wooden chairs, buried her face in her hands, and began to sob uncontrollably. It was the deep, agonizing crying of someone who had just watched her entire world shatter into pieces. I walked over to her, wrapped my arms around her shoulders, and held her tight, just like I used to do when she was a little girl and had scraped her knees on the playground. I didn't say any stupid cliches. I didn't tell her that everything happens for a reason, or that she would get over it quickly. I just let her cry, keeping her safe against my chest, while the reality of the situation washed over her. "I am so sorry, Dad," she whispered after a long time, wiping her face with a paper towel. "I am so sorry I brought that monster into our lives. I was so blind. I thought he loved me." "You have nothing to apologize for, Chloe," I said, sitting down across from her at the table. "Men like Julian are professional liars. They spend their entire lives practicing how to look like exactly what you want to see. You wanted a good man, and he built a mask to fit that description. The crack in his character wasn't your fault." She looked at the manila folder sitting on the table, then looked at me. "Why didn't you tell me about Uncle Marcus's money sooner?" I took a deep breath, looking out the kitchen window at my old garage. "I was terrified, Chloe. When that lawyer told me about the $14 million, the very first thing I thought about was how money changes people. I saw how it made your uncle isolated and lonely, and I saw the way Julian was already sniffing around, asking questions about my finances and your college funds. Some gut instinct told me to stay quiet. I needed to see if he loved you for who you are, or if he was just waiting for a payday. I wanted to protect you." Chloe looked down at her wedding ring, a sparkling piece of carbon that suddenly looked completely worthless. She slowly slipped it off her finger and set it quietly on the wooden table. "You did protect me," she said, her voice steadying. "If you had told us about the money before the wedding, Julian would have played the perfect, loving husband for years. He would have waited until the funds were transferred, taken everything he could, and then left me completely broken. Your silence gave him enough rope to hang himself. The legal fallout was swift and completely uncompromising. The next morning, Chloe and I went straight to an attorney who specialized in high-asset family law. Given the clear, undeniable evidence of financial fraud, premeditated deception, and the fact that Julian had actively run public record searches on the estate prior to proposing, our lawyer filed for an immediate annulment based on fraud, rather than going through a standard divorce. When Julian's legal team saw the mountain of evidence Silas Thorne had compiled, including the detailed timeline of his gambling debts and his previous failed engagement to Meredith, they advised him to sign the papers immediately without a fight. They knew that if this went to a public courtroom, the details of his predatory financial behavior would become public record, completely destroying any chance he had of ever working in real estate or consulting again. His mother, Diane, tried to call Chloe a dozen times, leaving long, weeping voicemails, claiming her son was just under immense financial stress and that they needed to handle this within the family. Chloe didn't reply to a single one. She blocked the numbers and deleted the messages. She was completely done letting people use her as a financial strategy. It has been nearly a year since that Tuesday afternoon when Julian walked into my kitchen with a crooked lawyer and a folder full of lies. The $14 million is still sitting in a secure, well-managed trust account. We haven't spent it on flashy cars or massive mansions. Chloe used a small portion of it to pack up her things, pay off her remaining student loans, and move into a beautiful, quiet apartment closer to my place. She went back to school part-time to pursue her master's degree in educational leadership, something she had put on the back burner because Julian always complained that a teacher's salary wasn't prestigious enough for his lifestyle. She looks lighter now. She laughs more. The shadow that Julian had quietly cast over her life for 2 years has completely vanished, replaced by a grounded confidence of a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she is worth. We sit at my kitchen table almost every Sunday afternoon now, drinking coffee and talking about everything and nothing. There are no secrets between us anymore, no hidden fortunes, and no fake smiles trying to butter me up for a signature. Sometimes, when I'm working alone in my garage, fixing up an old tractor or sorting through my tools, I look over at the house and think about my brother Marcus. We lost 30 years because we were too proud to sit down and talk through our differences. But in the end, his final act of leaving that inheritance to me ended up saving his niece from a lifetime of manipulation and heartbreak. It wasn't the way Marcus intended to protect this family, but it worked perfectly nonetheless. People sometimes ask me if I feel guilty about keeping that secret from my daughter for so long, or if I regret letting her walk down that aisle 3 days before crashing her world. And the honest, unvarnished answer is no, not for one single second. If I had spoken up early, the truth would have stayed hidden underneath Julian's polished act. My silence didn't create the trap. It just gave the wolf enough room to step into it, completely on his own. And today, my daughter is safe, single, fiercely independent, and finally free to build a life with someone who actually values her heart instead of her father's bank account.